Hello and welcome back to the Commander Lurpack YouTube channel. In today's video I shall be painting a World War II 172 Scout Panzer tank diorama. A bit of context, I was attending Salute 50 Wargaming show. Now 2 days before the event I noticed my ticket included a free entry into the painting competition, and I thought it being free and all, it would be rude not to enter. Thus began a frantic 2 evenings to finish an entry to my first proper painting competition.
Step 1!
To begin, I primed the tank with a watered down coat of Abaddon black. After the primer, the first colour going on the tank is Eshin grey. I'm using a flat brush to dry brush this colour onto the tank. I'm dry brushing to allow the black primer to poke through the grey, adding depth to the colour. The dry brushing technique can also add a nice texture to flat surfaces. With the Eshin grey done, it's now time for the next layer of grey. I've gone for the lighter grey Dawnstone. Again, I'm dry brushing this layer on, this time using a smaller flat brush. This will enable me to pick out specific details easier, and also create a different texture on the flat surfaces to the previous layer's brushwork. Next up, you guessed it, more grey. I'm using an even lighter grey, Celestra grey, and applying it with a large dry brush. In this layer I try to pick out all the raised edges with this lighter colour to highlight the detail. On the flat surfaces, I used a brush to lay down the last layer of texture using a variety of brush strokes to create a random pattern. This looks much more interesting than just a flat colour. With all the greys done, I add some decals. Surprisingly, I've never actually used them before. Sacrilege, I know. With the base colours done on the main parts of the tank, it's time to move on to my favourite step, weathering. Using an artist sponge and Rhinox hide brown, I stipple on some chipping effects, being careful not to have too much paint on the sponge. With the chipping done, I'm going to use AK streaking grime for the next stage of weathering. Using a fine detail brush, I add the streaking grime to areas of the tank you would expect grimy streaks to appear, such as the vertical sides. I create the streaks by dragging the brush down from the top of the vehicle, lightening my stroke towards the bottom of the streak. This creates the wider top a narrower bottom to the streak, emulating how the grimy liquid has lost mass on its trajectory down the side. This really helps break up flat surfaces, and I think creates a realistic look to the grime. With all the streaking grime applied, I'm going to use AK Winter Streaking Grime to add some variation of colour hue to the streaks. The streaking grime is more greeny in hue, the winter grime is a black colour. Again, I am using a fine detail brush and the same top to bottom strokes as before. One more bottle of grime awaits, AK Rush Streaks. This is another colour hue to add to the streak effects, an orangey brown this time. Another technique you can do with the streaks is to paint the streak on and then smear it with your finger to really dull its impact for a more muted effect. With that, all the streaks are done and it is time for my favourite product, Vallejo Thick European Mud.
Nice.
Whilst it doesn't look particularly nice in the pot, it has the best looking mud texture I've come across, and as weird as it sounds, I've tried a lot of muds. Using a well and truly knackered brush, designated as the mud brush, I apply the paint all over the tracks and gears using a stippling technique. I also make sure to get some of it onto the armoured skirts above and in front of the tracks where mud would splash up. In order to add snow, we need Mod Podge. Now, considering I've never added snow to a model, I for some reason thought it would be a good idea to cover my entry to a painting competition in snow. To do this, I paint Mod Podge onto the top of the tank where snow would settle. So I helpfully didn't record the next step, but it basically consisted of me pouring woodland scenic snow all over the tank and swearing a lot that I shouldn't have done this. After realising I wasn't recording, I shook off the excess snow from the tank. I'm using Mod Podge again to paint the tracks of the tank in order to apply snow here using the Salt Bay technique. And with that, the tank is done.
5!
So the base of my diorama will be made from a shadow box frame with the glass removed. I've got some extruded foam which I will cut to fit the frame opening. This is a great material to work with, light and easy to cut. I then glue it all in place with glorious Mod Podge. To create a ground texture, I'm using filler. I was meant to pick up exterior filler due to its stronger properties, but I'm a bit of a melon and I picked up deep gap filler instead. The deep gap filler applied fine to the base, but will not be very durable. However, with this being the final evening before salute, I had no choice but to plough on, creating a rough texture with the filling knife. Whilst the filler is still wet, I press some spare tank tracks into it to create an impression into the filler. Now, due to the softness of the deep gap filler after it had dried, I slapped a load of Mod Podge on top of it, so this would harden the surface. We are back to our friend Vallejo and their thick European mud. I apply this to the tank track.
6!
So I realised my tank looked a bit lost with no sense of scale on the diorama, and what better sense of scale than a person? So the idea is to have two of these German infantry walking in the tank tracks behind the Panzer. To add a bit of a grim reminder of the brutality of war, I thought I'd add a hand coming from a corpse poking through the snow. So the painting of these 1/76 scale German infantry was a real challenge, mainly because I couldn't see what I was doing.
What is that?
I've never painted anything smaller than Warhammer's 28mm scale, so this scale was a bit of a shock to the system. I focused on getting the base colours in roughly the right place, and then got carried across the finish line by the painter's best friend, Agrak's Earthshade. I then cut off the arm that will be poking out of the snow. Using the good old Stronghold super glue, I glue all the miniatures to the diorama. With the addition of the infantry for a sense of scale, I think the Panzer looks much more imposing and shows off its true size much better.
7!
Before adding snow, I cover the whole base in Mod Podge, including the top of the soldiers' helmets and shoulders. For the snow, I am using Woodland Scenic Soft Flake Snow. It comes with a shaker on the bottle's lid, which is great for large projects, but for this scale it's too big. So I decanted some snow into a herb pot with a much finer shaker, much better for this scale. Also, now your diorama will have the sweet aroma of Italian herbs.
King of flavour.
I then seasoned my diorama with my Italian snowflakes, giving it a good covering. Once the Mod Podge has dried, I shake off the excess snow. I add a bit more mud around the feet of the infantrymen to blend them with the base. AK Puddles is a resin-based product which creates realistic looking muddy puddles. I apply this to the tank tracks to give the mud a wet look where the snow has melted into slush in the churned up mud. The last step is to glue the Panzer into place. Let's see what the final result looks like.
Step 8, Brezhnev! Freedom!
So here is my tank in the display cabinets. I actually forgot to take a photo, so thanks to Beasts of War for taking one. Check out their Salute blog for some great photos of all the entries and of the event in general. Now, unsurprisingly, I didn't win anything with my rather last minute entry, and the level of painting there was ridiculously good, so it was cool to even have my miniature in the same display as the others. Also, the main highlight was the man, the myth, the legend, Duncan Rhodes, helping judge the competition, and the thought that he looked at a model I've painted made the desperate rush to paint it in time worth it. Next Salute, I will definitely join in again and spend a bit more time on my entry. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. The next video will hopefully be in June, and it will be a continuation of me painting my Napoleonic Solar Auxiliary Army, where I've got to paint about 200 chaps for an event that's just over a month away. So wish me luck, because I actually need it. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye!